Okay. Oh, you want to? No bells, right? All right. Good morning, everyone. Um, so this is a quite interesting chapter. It's very short, but there's an awful lot of meaningful teaching in here. And so um, anyway, it's really good for me to be reading it right now. I'm doing really well, I think. But I've had a hard time lately. My youngest son just left for college, so the empty nest is kind of heavy on me. And I was thinking the other day how I turned 72 about a year and a half ago. And I was thinking, my health is really good. I had my tonsils out when I was 3, and I've never had any more surgical procedures since then. And then about a month after that, these varicose veins started acting up and were really painful. So I had that done about June of last year. Then I went to see my ophthalmologist, said, you need cataract surgery on both your eyes. So I had both my eyes done. That's 3. And now I've got this, about the last month and a half, I've got this inguinal hernia below my belly button. So now that's going to be number 4 in a year and a half. So,
and you're not done yet.
Not done yet. No. I have that's for sure. I have this leaky heart valve, my aortic valve, and that's going to have to be probably open heart surgery. Maybe not anytime real soon, but probably if I make it to 80, I'm 73. If I make it to 80, there's a good chance I'll need it by then. So when he starts the chapter with the most important thing, Kwang Roshi was a disciple of Suzuki Roshi, and Suzuki Roshi had a famous saying about that. He said, the most important thing for us as Buddhists is to find the most important thing. And that makes it's kind of really typical of Suzuki Roshi's way of being intimate and deep and obscure at the same time, So I really agree with what Kwang Roshi said about that. He wants everyone to experience this vastness, the nature of our true nature, right? And to know the actual nature of that and to be free from suffering because of that. And we all have, I think he said, the most important thing is to find the most important thing, is because there's so many different ways of expressing that and obstacles to expressing it and to realizing it. And what I was drawn to in thinking about how to present this stuff was the power of confession, because I know, we've talked in here about being confused, even though we're seasoned Zen practitioners. And I realize there's a little bit of resistance in me to confessing my confusion about it all. And but it's really there. I had this weird dream last night about waking up feeling out of control, in the dark, and kind of afraid, but mostly confused about what to do. And then all of a sudden I was led out into this strange house, and there's a garage with a car in it. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do? I can get in the car, and then the car starts up and starts driving down a road, and I'm just a passenger in the car, And so it reminded me of a saying of Adyashanti's, where he said, you really need to learn how to really make your realization real and deeper. You need to let go of the steering wheel, kind of thing. And I thought, okay, so that's kind of a pretty obvious message that I didn't really get until I woke up and reflected on it. But that leads into what he was talking about in terms of testing. And the teachers I've studied in depth, always say that the real teacher is not the human teacher. The human teacher is a reflection of the inner guru, or the teacher beyond the confines of inner and outer, the vast mystery of our true nature. And so that the human teacher is a role model for us to surrender to that inner teacher. So for me, that really directly points to that fear of losing control, that fear of dying, which becomes more prevalent when you're faced with multiple reminders of your mortality. So that modeling of the surrender to the inner guru, he says in the chapter, he's talking about testing the teacher, not just accepting blindly beliefs. Of course, there's pitfalls to that, because especially unless we're really, really seasoned, we're going to be testing the teacher, the human teacher, from the viewpoint of our own bondage, our own desires, our deep connection to our desires and fears. So what really is happening is we're testing our own ideas, and so the best teachers that I've had experience with will be aware of all that. And one of the big most important qualities of the human teacher is to model their own willingness to be tested, and to test ourselves, because practice is very difficult, and it gets confusing. I mean, how could it not be confusing when on the one hand we say practice like your head's on fire, and then they'll say, but the generosity is the first paramita, and we need to welcome whatever happens with complete relaxation. How can that not seem like a direct contradiction? How do you resolve those two things? So for me, that means we need to learn to welcome our confusion. If we welcome our confusion, treat our confusion with kindness, because how could we not be confused? It's part of the path. And what comes up for me around that, welcoming and feeling welcomed. If we learn how to welcome our confusion and our suffering, maybe sometimes in some contexts we treat our suffering as a being in itself, in one context. So if our suffering and our confusion feels welcomed, maybe it will no longer be clamoring for our attention, trying to distract us. So if we're kind to our distractions, maybe the need to be distracted by our disowned selves will kind of dissolve, because confession, in a way we say, it kind of melts the root. If we confess our confusion, our suffering, it kind of melts the root of it, because there's a oneness, there's a unification there with it. So, and then I was really interested in how he brought in the experience of the beach at Salt Point and with the cicadas. That whole thing about the awe and wonder, the wonderful experiences that are full of wonder. And I wanted to read something I read from Huston Smith's autobiography years ago, and it reminded me of that. So at the end of his autobiography, he describes an experience of his friend Anne Joargui had as a young girl in Michigan, a beautiful merging of the spirit of inquiry with spirit itself. So she said, in the summer, I would lie on a wooden raft, anchored in the bay, listening to the waters lapping, drowsy in the warm sunshine. The warm day, the clear northern light, and the water's gentle motion together worked a semi-hypnotic effect. Then suddenly I would snap alert and feel intensely alive. Or rather, that everything was alive and that I was part of it. The rocks, the rowboats on the shore, the water itself, everything seemed pulsating with a kind of energy. I found that I could put questions to this experience, What is my role in all this? I asked. I want to know. Show me. The rocks, the trees, the water, all in silent chorus answered, not in words, of course, that my wanting to know just that was my part of the pulsating landscape. And later, when I was older, I was able to reflect on this and translate it as creation delights in the recognition of itself. So to me, what was really important about that, one, that, the innocence of being a child, that openness and that willingness to be welcomed by nature and to welcome it, and that wanting to know, of course, it wasn't in words. So it's more like in Rupert's description of knowing, not knowing conceptually, but knowing in the sense of just being aware of or witnessing or experiencing. That kind of pure knowing is what she was told, or she intuited was her role. And I think that's our role, or at least for me, that's what it really manifests in that form of, that's the most important thing, wanting to know. A conviction, it's not a mental conviction, but there's still a part of me that longs for certainty, even though I know there's no certainty in conceptual terms. That still seems to be kind of the heart of my spirit of inquiry there. Yeah, so have any of you ever sat a sesshin at Lou's place in Cocoa Beach? Yeah.
I have twice.
You did it?
Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
Once with Donna and once with Joy.
Oh, okay. And then in the summertime there, the cicadas were so loud. Do you remember that? They were just, it was like deafening. Like you almost had to shout. If you were talking to someone, you almost had to raise your voice pretty loud to be heard. And it's interesting because lately I've been noticing how they're very intense here where I live, because I'm way out in the boonies. And the chorus he talks about, the natural chorus, there's like different groups on different sides of you, and they kind of reach a crescendo on one side, and then they all together, they just it dies out all together, like they're all intuitively doing that, and what's really interesting, I think, in terms of the whales and their breathing and the energy from the salt point and the young girl in Michigan, it's like they're really not. It reminds me of a saying that Ananda Mayima said, that our true nature can't be known through conceptual thought, but it is known through the life breath. It is known through opening up and just receiving, being willing to receive this energy that comes from a higher power or an incomprehensible power. And being free of ideas about it. It's like the whales and also, when I was in a Zoom group last week and I started feeling all this emotion about everything, mostly because that was the day my youngest son left. I started crying in the group, and my dog was upstairs in his cage up there. He has a little cage in the bedroom where he sleeps. And he heard me and he came running down and he lapped on my lap and he was hugging me. And he'd done that before, but it was like, for me, it was like those experiences of the awe and wonder of, without him thinking, just instinctively, he knew that I needed that. That's what I needed. I needed that welcoming and that compassion right there. So, where have I been going? I haven't been going that long either. That's mainly what I got out of this. There is a lot more I could say. I kind of wanted to open it up though and see what kind of reactions you guys
have. Thank you, Roger. I jump off and just write down be kind to your confusion and welcome your confusion. That I just ran straight into a brick wall with that. That really hit me. We sometimes think we're supposed to be, I guess, Zen enlightened teachers. You've been studying all these years. You're 73. You should know something right now. So you sometimes become unkind to your confusion. You shouldn't be confused at this point. And I think that it's so wonderful for you to say, to be childlike, to say, okay, we don't get it. We still have anxiety dreams before we do things. How wonderful that is, to be sort of that shaky 15-year-old self with these things. The last thing I want to say is that all of us are at the age, I'm 73 also too. I'm at the age where things are going bad now. And from now on, more things are going to go bad. That's what it is. And I have to really embrace it. There's a musical group that I like right now. It's called the Railroad Earth. And they have a song called The Great Divide. And it's about death. And one of the lines it says, don't you want to go? Don't you want to fly high up like an eagle, floating in the sky, across these troubled waters, across the Great Divide? I thought, man, there it is. Don't be afraid of dying. Across troubled waters, like an eagle, fly. To go into it.
Yeah.
And we're a combination of both brave Zen practitioners, and we're confused little children. I'm the girl on the raft on both sides, at the beginning and the end of it too, and to be there too. So it's just it's a wonderful thing to think that we can still at this age not get it. All mental illness is some variation of perfectionism. You're more of an expert at this than I am, but we aren't perfect. Early on in life, I got the idea very early in my life is that I'm screwed up. I have HADD. I'm on the spectrum probably. I pay attention to no details. I'm a hot mess, man. I'm a wreck. And people are always mad at me for stuff. I'm constantly in trouble. People are mad at me. I got bad grades in school. My father was disappointed in me. He said, shame for the family and everything. I somehow embraced that early on. I said, yeah, that's me, but I'm pretty funny at the same time, So it's been an enjoyable, terrible ride. And so early on in the car, I stopped wanting to steer. I'm just along for the ride, see what happens, I often talk to you guys about the snowflake's journey. The snowflake falls in the top of the Himalayas. It's gonna get down the gears used to the sea, and it doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Just sit still and wait, and we'll get there. So your idea of be kind to our confusion, I will be chewing on that. I'll be breaking my teeth on that for weeks. So thank you for that. That was really a gift to me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's interesting how we all get driven to the Dharma in different ways, but I definitely had that same thing, like, why am I here? Or, there's something wrong with me. I don't fit in, even though somehow I did, it was never comfortable fitting until late in life. Yeah.
Roger, that was,
Thank you.
yeah. Oh, by the way, Frank, I think, you're in so much trouble because probably you don't have enough Jews living around you. You chew on that. What comes up for me, Roger, you're talking about your son leaving and some other things that you mentioned. It's hard for me to let go of all these things, and I try to come up with all sorts of answers that don't make any sense to me. When I lost my hair, I said, why am I losing my hair? This is ridiculous, Then I said, well, no big deal. I said, I could look like Telly Savalas now, or, Yul Brynner. That's kind of cool, And then you mentioned your cataract surgery. I had cataract surgery also recently, but I was supposed to have it on both eyes, and I only had it on one eye because I had a lot of problems with the eye. I had complications. The eye was swollen, and I was on prednisone, and I had to keep going back and forth to the doctor. And I said to myself, what if I lose my eye? What happens if I lose? Then I said, well, I can always wear a patch. And I always thought the Hathaway guy, remember the Hathaway guy with the patch?
Yeah.
Hey, that's kind of cool, and then maybe I could look like a pirate. I get a parrot. I'm always coming up with I'm trying to come up with answers if something goes wrong with me. And And then I had the hernia surgery. I had inguinal hernia. I had double inguinal hernia surgery.
Mm,
And I had problems with that. I had a seroma on one of this big swelling on one side. I had two hernias, and one of them was very bad, very large. And it took an awful long time for it to go down. And they didn't know if it was going to go down. And I might have had to have had additional surgery.
mm,
And I wanted to ride a bike after this hernia surgery because I couldn't before. Well, maybe I can get a recumbent bike. Maybe that'll work. So I don't have to, I'm always trying to come up with answers, and there are no answers. There really are no answers.
yeah.
And at just some point, I get just so tired of it, just to let it go. Let all of this go. Difficult for me, confused.
Mhm.
At least you were crying about your son. I've had some falling out with my son. I haven't spoken to him, or he hasn't spoken to me for over 2 years. And I have no idea why.
Mm,
I've reached out to him, different things I found out from my daughter, and absolutely nothing, And I'm confused about all of this. I'm confused about how this all happened. Why am I here? I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be here. But how do I respond to this? I think, Frank, you got it. Just be with the confusion. Bring some kindness wherever you can. What else can we do? It's in our relationship.
yeah,
And thank you for that, Roger. It
yeah.
coalesces the whole thing. I don't know what this effing is. I really don't. But
Mm.
we keep trying. We're human. We
Keep
keep trying. We keep trying. And I did a talk about, actually, before you came on with us a few months ago, about how not speaking to my son in over 2 years. And I brought up Rupert and Robert Adams and Dogen and all. How do you react to all of this? And yeah, it helps. All of that helped. Yet I still miss my son. I still
Oh, yeah.
miss my son. I mean,
Yeah.
it's our humanness, right? You can't get away from that. And we're not stone. We're not stone Buddhas.
Yeah.
We're human, and that I think that's what we have to accept, that we're human
Mhm.
with all the stuff that goes on with that.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
And Bud, and be kind to your resistance to the confusion and the pain.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Bud. What's coming up for me? I was reflecting when you talked about your son and emptiness, and I think emptiness is what brought me to Zen. I have one son, and when he left for college, I was depressed. I didn't even know I was depressed. But anyway, I somehow led me to Zen. I was in such a state of flux that I found Zen as a result of my emptiness. So he rarely comes home. I am gonna fly out today to go visit with him. It's his birthday tomorrow because he doesn't need me, but I still try to maintain the relationship with him. I don't know what's it with these boys. He says, "Mommy, you needed a daughter." I'm not a daughter, so that's my relationship with my son. And then the whole idea of teacher, I've been sitting with this about testing the teacher, and I know in Zen it is I guess a requirement to have a teacher. And I'd like to ask the group here, does everyone currently have a teacher they're working with?
Hmm.
You all.
Yeah.
I do.
You do? Okay.
Mhm.
So that's something I've been questioning. And then Roger, as you talked about the aliveness and being with everything, what finally clicked with me was the pregnant pillars, or the pillars that Dogen talk about being, was it pregnant?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's okay. I guess that's what the pregnant pillars mean. Everything really full of life and so on. And I am constantly confused with Zen. So thank you for giving me permission to be confused and to have some compassion with my confusion. Because sometimes I get like, why does it have to be so difficult? Why is it such a mystery? You
Mhm.
know, it's like it's written in codes that I don't understand. So but at the same time, you know, I do get the intimacy of not knowing, letting go, and surrendering to just being and just experiencing what is. So thank you all.
Mm,
You're Claudette.
yeah.
Thank you, Roger. It was an interesting chapter. They're pithy, maybe is the word. They're so full. They're like 6 or 7 things, you know, within 5 or 6 pages that really kind of ignite multiple fires along the way. Something that came to me while you were talking, and you know, I think we have, at least I think I have had an assumption. I think it probably generalizes to a lot of people, is that we tend to think that teachers, you know, have all their act together, and that, you know, once they are awakened or become aware that life goes on in some type of perfect fashion. You know, I feel that way about Dogen. You know, I have this, I've created this, you know, kind of mental image of Dogen as being complete, right? Mastering everything and being able to handle every single challenge that comes from life. And I think I feel that way probably about Suzuki, Shinryu Suzuki, and some other people. Obviously not about Maizumi, and obviously not about a number of teachers in terms of what they have displayed or expressed in terms of their responses to their awareness. And I think it's probably it's a false conceptualization, which I think is what we tend to do all the time. We keep conceiving and conceptualizing about what we're missing, or what we're, you know, we should be feeling, or, you know, whatever that conditioning that we've had in the past, it constantly propels us forward in terms of imagining the next best thing, or why am I feeling this, or why am I feeling this or that, you know, it's this why. And you know, it came to me that, you know, geez, well, Buddha had another 40 years, and why did he keep on teaching? Because he kept on teaching. You know, he didn't know what else to do. And life carried on, and all the bullshit, and, you know, and eventually he dies from food poisoning. You know, I'm laughing at the, the stupidity or the absurdity. You know, if anything could have been more Dada than that, you know. I'm not sure what it is. As you go on, I guess everybody talks about, or really a lot of people who have experienced awakening or enlightenment, or, you know, whatever it may be, awareness, with that, they go off for 10 years and try to digest it before they come back on the scene, right? And I, you know, even there, we tend to put a conclusion on what was his name, who came out of the cave, you know, after 9 years of facing the wall in the cave. I mean, we tend to put a conclusion on it, and the conclusions are bullshit, right? I mean, that is just our own putting a period at the end of something and wanting to feel that there's something reified by putting the period at the end of something. And then we start to develop the next paragraph, right?
Yeah.
In the next paragraph, we go through the same thing, you know, again, and it's cyclical, and it's the cicadas waxing and waning in terms of the intensity of their rubbing their legs, you know, together. And, you know, I think it's what we do, right? It's what we do, and the awareness of the awareness is all we have. I was in a talk yesterday, and the person kept talking about that once you find awareness, that awareness deepens. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it doesn't. What is this deepness that you're talking about? There is no such thing as deepness. It's just thinking about something else. We put the deep on it, right? And we put the valence on the ions, right? I mean, we're the ones that, you know, create the whole thing. And I think we're in this constant at least what I perceive to be, and this is my own, creating my own, conceptualization here, which is, you should throw away immediately. The nature of what we do, it's we keep on creating. There's something there that just keeps on coming up
Mhm.
with pain, with pleasure, with kind of the nature of experience with that. And so as Doc says, repeatedly, isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
I mean, even to experience it all
Yeah.
with that. So thank you for your talk with that. I appreciate your confusion,
Thanks, Tom.
as I obviously do mine.
Yeah.
My Zoomy was a good teacher. He was human.
Yeah, that's very true. That's
Very
very
true.
true, actually.
And
Yeah.
Lou, for that criteria, Lou Nordstrom's the best teacher
Hmm.
because he's obviously fallible, and he's got it at the same time. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to
Yeah.
just respond to Claude. I say about a teacher is my whole life I've been with various teachers. I really tried to be subservient, trying and sort of submit myself to them. This Sangha, what a super group. This is like Led Zeppelin. You always start some other group, and you also put it all together. And you bring these different flavors. I'm missing Donna still. She's the cayenne pepper to our chili. She's
Yeah,
not here. She had something else. But this Monday is top of my week. I really look forward to it. So if I can move heaven and earth to be here, because
Yeah.
there's somehow a diversity of opinion too, and also too, there's a little bit of forgiveness and a little bit of levity at the same time too, which I really
Yeah.
just love this group. So I
Yeah.
feel both safe and enlightened every time I'm in this group. It's really, really great.
Mhm. Frank,
Among the best teachers I've ever had is right here.
Doc, what comes up for me too is how important Mitch was in that regard, because I can't help but think that here's this guy, zenned out to the max and multiple times at Auschwitz and living this life, living large, right? I mean, living a very large life from what I can gather. And he's still learning, right? He's still handing out books,
Right.
and he's in an intellectual frenzy, an experiential frenzy right up until the end, right? I mean, some of those last moments that he participated here when he had an attendant, and you could hear he was fervent about
Absolutely.
continuing the process, right? I mean, and so and he's the one that introduced me to Rupert, and to Nisargadatta, and to all that. I mean, so here he is, this Zen guy. I know Zen people where I mention Nisargadatta, and their eyes roll into their head. Right? You just get like this chill, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, his willingness to really bare his soul, and that's what I'm discovering about our group here, is that it feels like we're all really willing, because I'm feeling more willing to bare my soul instead of hiding behind my intellectual knowledge kind of thing, which I tend to get into sometimes out of fear of being welcome, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the magic of Mitch. And I remember when I was talking with him, and then he loved that Love Dogs poem like we all do. And so one time he asked me, he says, okay, so he was kind of testing me, right? We were kind of like peers, but so he was testing me, and he says, what was the most important line in Love Dogs? And immediately it came to me, and so the grief you cry out from is the connection. Yeah. And I think that resonated with him, but that was really clear to me. So bearing our souls is crying, the grief we cry out from, that is the connection.
Yeah.
So that's the bond, and that's his gift to us. Yeah.
Now we should talk about him in the present tense.
He's right here right now.
He's right here. Where would he go?
now.
Where would he go?
In
He's
this-
right here with us.
In this here and now ball, there's no past or future. And his spirit animates these conversations.
Yeah. For sure.
And look what's come out of it. I mean, for Tom, especially. Tom, you have enough in this group to keep you busy for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
You don't have to look anywhere else.
You mean I can't retire?
Not anymore.
I told a friend of mine, I'm getting willing to retire. I'm getting ready to retire. And he goes, retire from what?
Right.
Just there of the five here, there are three therapists here in this group right here. Boy, think of all the free stuff you and I are getting.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Let's move on.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Meta Su